Hello, Internet. This is gonna be weird ass Wednesday cereal. Yes. So just to explain the format real quick, I have like a bunch of different sections and like people to reply to, and I'm gonna link videos below, and you're probably gonna have no idea what I'm talking about. But I don't care right now. Okay, so here's the main deal. I didn't do a review yesterday because, I don't know if you know or not, I live in Boulder, Colorado, which yesterday, Barry could have potentially been on fire, and I was wigged out and not really in the mood, and whatever. Anyways, it was really annoying because my roommate's like, oh, it's never gonna burn. Idiots! It could burn at any minute. Anyways, I drank Mountain Dew and 5-hour energy because I got like no sleep and now I'm wired and ready to crash. But that doesn't matter. What I did have that I thought I'd ask you guys about is this. I had a very real situation of going, oh my god, everything could burn. My comics could burn. So, usually when you get that question, it's like, what 10 comics would you save? 10, that's nice. No, I got some clothes, I got important papers, I got some irreplaceables, and it's like, how much of my car can I devote to saving as many comics as flippin' possible? And I found it was really interesting. The first things I grabbed was a certain chunk of Spider-Man comics, a little more than I would have expected necessarily, but I realized a lot of those are more mementos than comics as such. And also my first Deadpool run, and then there's like the current box and the indie box, and there were some other things. And just as a point of interest, we just had that whole Watchmen thing doing issue by issue. If anyone's on board, I think it'd be really cool to do that with Next Wave. Just putting it out there. But anyways, realistically, like, if you had, like, an hour or so to pack up and, like, realize, like, what would you save, how many comics would you save, that sort of thing, because I started realizing, like, there's some shit I want to save, but it's mostly, like, comics and how much, like, it was this weird value of, like, how important is this to me, and then, like, how easily can it be replaced? And some of it I'm like, it's so cheap, I'd rather throw away this, and then maybe I don't like this as much, but I have a hell of a time finding it again, so I'm saving that. And it was this weird dichotomy, but some of it could have been very easily replaced, but meant a lot to me, and those particular copies meant something to me because I remember getting them. It was kind of a moment. So anyways, I'm gonna have to reorganize everything because it's half packed up and I have to unpack, and I realized the organization was jacked. Also, quick side note, I meant to say this earlier, but I wanted to give a shout out to Comic Uno, who, if you don't know, she does crazy format that almost no one else does, where she'll talk about like each individual comic for 5 minutes, and then she'll do like a topic video. Every week it's just like a million videos, which is cool, but I can't imagine doing that. I prefer the longer video style, so instead of breaking this into a bunch of videos, which I was thinking about, I'm just doing one thing, so there you go. Another question is this that came up today, completely unrelated, new topic. Do any of you read digital comics? Because I've been thinking about getting a tablet, and I don't know what's optimal. I've read a lot of places that the iPad is terrible, which is fine by me. I hate Apple products. I grew up in Boulder. There's tech wars going on, and I chose a side. Apple sucks. Yeah. So, if any of you know or like know what to look for, what kind of screen's better for your eyes, even though it's color and none of them are that great, and you can't do the weird Kindle reader thing, which is cool, but it's just... If any of you know anything about that, that would be cool. From the best part of what I've heard, the Kindle Fire is supposed to be good, but it seems like it would be a bit small, and I wish they'd do a tablet that's like at least comic size page or magazine size page size, and that way you could just port it and it would be big enough and it would make sense, and it would be a little cumbersome, but there has to be enough people where that would seem to be preferable, I think. I don't know. Next up is the Howler Mouse contest. If you don't know about it, he has a contest going on. You had to turn in by Friday. Here's my submission, and I'm already cheating. Oh my god, because he asked for your best, your favorite rather, Kirby DC book. I don't own a single Kirby comic book at all, actually. And I certainly don't own any DC, and I don't own like any older DC at all. But what I do have is this. And if you are unfamiliar, they actually adapted this issue for the 2003 cartoon. This was one of the original one-shots, which took place during the early years of TMNT, and this was before they got big. I mean, first issue was big, but I mean, then it was like yeah, anyways. In this, Donatello's asked to go take care of something mundane, and then he meets one of April's renters, who happens to be Jack the King Kirby, who's come across this mystical pencil. When he draws things, they come to life. And that's kind of the premise, and one of the things he's drawn is a portal, and they go into the world, and all of his human-esque characters, then all of his monster characters start fighting, and they naturally start taking the human side, which is interesting, but they took a side, it doesn't really matter. But it's a very interesting bit, and it kind of plays into Kirby's disappearance in a way, and gives it a little bit of grandeur. And it's a very powerful and interesting issue, and Peter Laird is the one who did most of the work on this one. And he did some amazing stuff, and it's very Kirby-esque. And if you're unfamiliar, one of the things that the Ninja Turtles came from was actually a love of old Kirby comics. So maybe I should check some out. But they did this within the news of that happening. They wanted to do an honor to Jack Kirby. And so it's a very powerful issue. It's one of my favorite single issue comics of all time. It also has to deal with one of my favorite characters in comics. And when I think about people loving Jack Kirby, this is the first thing that comes to mind for me. And it's really my point of reference for everything Kirby, because I've never been able to go back. Recently, however, someone bought my girlfriend this big, like, Kirby collection that kind of talks about his career, so I might be looking that over. But I know a lot of people love Commandy and some New Gods. If there's any other recommendations or way that I could check out some of this on the cheap, let me know. That'd be cool. Whatever. But yeah, that's my entry for Howler Mouse's contest. And I've already lost. Now, in the spirit of that, Minutia Minute has put out a contest as well. I already told him I don't even really want to win, but what he was asking for was recommendations, what he should buy, because he just called a bunch of books. I need to do so as well, and if you're a regular comic reader, I do recommend every now and again, especially when things are feeling a little stale, kind of really analyzing the books you're picking up and saying, maybe if I drop these and I just try something new or try something different, something I've been hearing about, it's good. Even if you go back to some older stuff. That's something I'm going to be doing soon, is dropping hopefully at least a couple of books. And then going back, because I've been realizing that I'd rather be picking up some trades of older stuff, going a bit more independent. Yeah. But, Minutia Minute, I don't have a recommendation for you. I am telling you, ordering, commanding, you need to catch up and start buying the current Ninja Turtles comic. You're like, I love Turtles. You will like it. I know it's a $3.99 book and I'm against it, but here, worth it. It's one of the comics I actually spent a little bit longer on and realize that, but still I'm having tons of fun with it. And this is the book you need to be picking up. Mostly because I have no one to talk about this with. There's no basis of comparison. There's no, you need to buy this book. So do it. I don't care about Marvel or DC or whatever. Yeah, no, get that book. Now. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm just going to do like a full-on response to Ghost Critic's review this week, because he talked about some stuff, and really, the framing the framing here is that we can have different opinions, but I'm always right. I mean, we can have different opinions, but still be cool with each other. And I'm doing this because you and I have had some back and forth before, and near as I can tell, we're cool with each other. I'm cool with him. He may secretly despise me, but he hides it very well. It might just be British politeness. It might be, but I think we're cool. Yeah. And I know this is the case, and we've had some interesting discussions across the community. Howler Mouse and I certainly have had some different opinions, but I respect him all the more for it at the end of the day. 99% of the time. So anyways, the first thing that Ghost Critic talks about is Wolverine vs. the X-Men, which, like every other X-Men or Avenger title right now, is tying into AVX. And how he doesn't like it because he's not reading the main book of the event, and that's cool, and I really shouldn't be reading that event, but it's decent. All I can say to him on this one is, sucker. It sucks though, right? I believe there's a place for event books. I understand why they do them, but it sucks because there's a sales spike usually when books are tied to events, because you have people just collecting all the books and then they're more willing to try it out, yada yada yada. However, there's a place where they can count on that spike, which helps keep some books that are floating alive well, but there's also some books that tend to do decently who take a deep decline because there's people who are reading that book because they like the fact that it's isolated, and then it gets caught up in an event, and then with the way a lot of people have to buy comics, actually, they have to cancel 2 months ahead of time because of ordering practices. And so it takes a while to catch up, and Marvel doesn't understand the message, and then by the time the sales decline, they're like, oh, well, I don't know what happened. What happened was a good book was tied to an event, and it killed all the momentum and slaughtered the book. And whereas I doubt that would happen to this book, it might significantly knock it down a chunk. And I think a lot of the Avengers and X-Men books that could be happening to right now, and that's why I'm not reading a single one unless X-Force gets caught up in all this shenanigans, which please don't. And then he talked about The Amazing Spider-Man and said he didn't like it, and I don't blame him. I didn't see that coming, did you? Before I get into that, I want to make a quick side note. Ghost Critic does something in his videos that I don't think anyone else does, and it's actually good practice, and I should start doing it, but I don't, and skipping through... I've never really noticed it before until now I'm trying to deal with it. He holds up the comic the entire freaking time he blabbles about it. Arm strength is good to practice. Awesome. And second, it makes it a lot easier to find if you're going back and trying to figure it out. That's really cool. I don't know if anyone else has any other ideas on that. But, yeah. So anyways, Amazing Spider-Man. He talks about it and talks about how it's not really grabbing him the way Amazing Spider-Man was, kind of Spider Island time, all that. Which I don't blame him. Frankly, the book has not been as good lately. I've still been enjoying it, but reading this particular issue, which is the start of this Lizard arc, which, of course, with the movie coming out with the Lizard, yeah. I was really invested in this story because when I was on the IMJ image boards, the last thing I got to post was about the Shred arc, which is the last time the Lizard was brought up, and I thought it was an amazing development of the character, and someone brought up, like, true, but given the events of that arc, once it was done, it really makes the Lizard one note. Like, he didn't see what else they could do. And I was kind of seeing what he was saying, trying to take it, but I was saying, like, you know, with good writing, you know, anything's possible. And they moved it forward. They did something to make the Lizard not the same story again and again, so you already was one note. They're trying something new. And in this issue, they prove that they're doing something different and really playing on the expectations of what the Lizard has been. And the script for this comic is amazing. It also makes me pissed because that was the best conversation I've ever had on a like typing forum thing, and then they accused me of having like trolling him, even though we're having actual discussion. Yeah, anyways, so anyways, this comic was really interesting, and the script was amazing. However, the artist on this comic is my least favorite Kurt Spider-Man artist. I know why now. The first time I saw him, it was pretty blatant. Like, a lot of people commented on this. The way he draws Peter Parker, you don't know it's Peter Parker. It doesn't look like Peter Parker. None of the facial structure is what classically is Peter Parker. It looks like he has a different hair color. His hairstyle is not what Peter Parker's ever has been. It just doesn't look like the guy. And then with the lizard and all this, the guy has a decent artist, but the faces don't work, and it really kills, and also kills some of the emotion when the faces don't work. So it's a great script, but the art is killing me. So I wish they get another artist. Doesn't necessarily have to be Ramos. There's plenty of great artists that could do great jobs with this. The guy they have on currently, I understand why he has a decent art style, but it does not fit this book at all, because you need the facial expressions, you need to know who certain characters are, especially given the side cast now of Amazing Spider-Man, which is one of the most sprawling in mainstream comics. So you really need to be able to pick up on stuff and pick up on people, because it's not so much the costumes as people. Like, I think this guy would be great for an Avengers book where everyone's pretty much in costume all the time. You don't really have side characters because you're just dealing with the superheroes. So, yeah, there you go. So, Ghost Critic, I think that's why you're not enjoying this arc. Appreciate the fact that they're going to stick with it, though. It sounds like they have some interesting things coming down the line. But I definitely understand, or if you're not as hardcore of a Spider-Man fan as I am, it would seem lackluster. And then he talks about Mind the Gap, The Hulk, Justice League, and Justice League Dark. And to all those comics, I say if that's your thing, it's cool. I'm not reading them, I don't know. But then he goes into Batman the Dark Knight, and there's a new creative team on it. It sounds like there's some interesting things, and I'm glad to hear that for two reasons. A, that was one of the most, frankly, despicable books DC was putting out from a creative standpoint before, and it sounds like now it's at least a decent comic. It's also kind of annoying because they keep canceling books. Some, like, honestly, Captain Atom's going away, and that's one of the books I've loved from DC, and it's being canceled. They're throwing in yet another freaking Batman book. Too much Batman. I'm kind of wondering how much they can oversaturate. Part of the problem is Batman is probably the most popular comic book character, so that they can just get away with it. Also, it sounds like a couple of the Batman books are considered to be basically top 20 comics on the stands to begin with, which means those basically get a free pass no matter what they are, and then you kind of delineate from there. So that's annoying, because Batman, oh well, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't read Batman, whatever. But I'm glad to hear that at least if you are a Batman fan and you're buying all the Bat books for some reason, the bar is a little higher. Then here is the interesting one. Speaking of calling, oh, my new Minute Man. Fatale. I read this book this week, and I loathed it. It was boring. And maybe I'm just having a bad juxtaposition moment here. I promised myself I'd go through and read Fatale in its own right before I decide to cancel it, because it's one of those books that maybe you just have to be in a different mood. Reading in the stack might be killing my appreciation of it, but it's pretty boring. It's really close to the drop list, and then seeing it be Ghost Critic's pick of the week was kind of baffling. But I just recently, as in the same day, finished Goldfish, one of Bendis's entry works before he was a name at all. And that was much more interesting noir to me. And it's interesting because part of what I don't like about Fatale is I thought there was going to be a female main character within a noir story, which is an interesting hook right there. That is not the case. I thought there's going to be a lot more supernatural elements, and while they dance around with it, none of it's ever direct, so you don't ever get like that horror encroaching on noir feel, which I was expecting. And then really, honestly, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of movement in this book. It feels like dialogue and things changing, but it could just keep seeming to cut out right when the story should be interesting. And it's very Hemingway in that, I guess. But it just isn't doing anything for it. Whereas Goldfish was interesting, because whereas I didn't love it or anything, it was more about a con man being the main character, and whereas it wasn't like high action all the time, you had some movements and some beats that were much more interesting, and any violence was pronounced and punctuated in a way that it should be, whereas the lead up and the talk about and all that, that's very much the noir bit, and I feel it played that balance better, whereas Fatale's just like silly putty, just being stretched out till it's snapped and just too thin. Next up, I wanted to talk about James Donnelly had a video in the Shadow Gallery outside of What's Up, Comic Bitches, whatever. Oh my god. This guy kind of just came out of nowhere recently and is putting out some of the most awesome videos. So first off, I don't really do as many official shout-out videos anymore, so check his shit out. Caveat, if you have the motherfucking time. Dude, I'm just gonna say this. I like your stuff and you have a lot of thoughts. But you have like 3 topic videos in a row to the point of it's the length of a feature-length film. You do not have the production value for me to plant my ass for 90 minutes. I do love your stuff and you break out your videos a lot more. I enjoy them, and sometimes I try to start watching them and then you finish one thing, go into the next, and I'm just like, I need to move on to something else. But awesome stuff. Just one viewer. I'm not trying to like tell you how to do your shit, but seriously, you have enough. Do one video at a time, please, just so I can digest and enjoy and talk to you. And but I mean, I guess you have your own viewerships. That's cool. You're probably doing better than me already. Also, it looks like you have melanoma. I know that's your camera's fault, but it's so yellow. Why? Whatever, that's cool. But yeah, this awesome video where he's talking about Saga 4. If you haven't read Saga 4, you're doing it wrong. So go fix that. And if you haven't read Saga 1 through 3, you get the idea. But Sextillion, there's people just getting it on. It's a planet of getting it on. Fuck yes. But he through this he broaches the idea of porn in comics, porn of comics, porn as art. You get the idea. Sex in comics, sex of comics, sexy comics, comic sexy. Yes. Yes. We should be talking about this more. And he brings up the idea that titillation is not so much in that comic, and I agree. It's very much background, and the way it's played is kind of droll, but, you know, we're in the generation of 4chan, so I don't know. Maybe that's a generational thing. That'd be interesting to ask some people. I found it kind of odd. I'll just say that the introduction to this planet is 2 women that are heads on legs. And I was like, that is the weirdest introduction to a sex planet ever, because they're not really sexual. I mean, they don't have any orifices, you know, women very much with the boobs, not so much here. Just talking heads. I realized you can't just have people nailing at the gate, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, and that was an odd thought that went through my head. I don't know where I'm going with that one. But then he talks about Lost Girls in a whole way that I never can, because I've never read it, because I wanted to once, and I looked at the price, and that was a great argument for Scanlations. And talking about, you know, there's porn comics out there, and one of the people who got me to the status of where I am on YouTube, Gay Comic Geek, yeah, he talks about gay porn comics a lot. It's about a third of what he talks about. And it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to see how people spin it and how they take just enough like personality before they do the porn to actually have you invested. I mean, and that's an interesting thing. And I mean, I think that's where clearly the porn industry isn't so worried with art. But I think there's a realm for that, and I think that's... It's not that porn can't be art, it's that usually it's commercialized. But let's be honest, 90% of our superhero comics are the same way in that respect only, but they're not really art. It's just commercial stuff out for your shits, giggles, and enjoyment. And you like it, and then you're done with it, and then most people move on. Some of us vlog about it. And be honest, I mean, how often do you reread the comics that you get? I mean, if you love comics, you're probably much more prone to it, but same with the people who really love porn. They're much more prone to rewatch, and then they have the people they follow, and companies, not quite the same, but whatever, and there's all that. And there's been an interesting correlation lately. I mean, there's been all the superhero porn parodies. It started off with the Batman one, which was playing more off the Adam West. But I mean, they've gone to like Justice League, they've done a Spider-Man one, they've been pretty across the map for the characters you'd expect, and a couple you wouldn't. And it's interesting. And interesting side note to that on the Batman porn, they got Ron Jeremy in there, but only as Ron Jeremy, not as the Penguin. I guess he turned down the role, but they wanted him anyways. It was an interesting moment. But, I don't really know where to talk about this because my head is not in a place to be talking art and sex and all that. But when I'm sober, because 5-hour energy drinks just put you over the edge, and I'm past the 5 hours now, so I should be crashing. But I did some collegiate learning of the pornography industry and where it lies with America, and there's some interesting stuff, but now's not the time. But you should definitely check out his video, and if you have anything to say about that, please do. But please, I mean, sexuality should be embraced a bit more, and I find it so odd that we have comics where people dress up in funny costumes and they're able to wail on each other and beat each other, and that's fine, but then sex isn't. That's weird to me. I mean, honestly, younger people, yeah, but I mean, how many people have had sex and not fight? A lot more. How many people have sex way more than they'd ever fight? Like, most people, I guess, have been in a fight or two, but it's very much, not the norm, whereas sex is, and it's something in our culture, and I don't really understand why people are so gun-shy about it, because it makes more sense to be talking about that than violence, because you should be more on that end to be a more peaceful person, to be a better person, to be a happier person. Feel a lot better after sex than after a fight. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about it. I failed. This is the weird video, obviously. Also, since it's been going around, Sleepy Reader and Minutia Minute did it, I, forever, have been past 100 viewers. And I usually get about, if I'm lucky, 50 people watching a video. So why do people subscribe if they don't watch? It's cool, but I don't know. Why do I care what they think? They're not watching, right? But we'll have a contest. If you ask me a question, I will answer your question. But please, people, any question you want, anything about comics, I want to do a Q&A video. So ask questions. go nuts, and then I will answer them. It can be about comics, it can be about me, it can be about sex, it can be about dancing, whatever. Whatever you want, ask me. If it's something that requires a PhD, I can't answer it properly because I'm not that smart. But I will try. I will try. So, yeah. Peace out, and if this is your first time, don't judge the channel on this video. I'm high, there's smoke coming down from the mountain. I'm mile high.